Welcome to this edition of FYI. I am joined in the studio by good friend, Mr. Greg Feynman from UOR Investigations, and he is joining us in the studio today for our listeners in New Mexico as well as in Colorado. This is an 8-part interview series that Greg and I have done so far in the last couple of years. And Greg, welcome again to this edition of FYI. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have materialized since last we spoke.
Okay, yeah, I'm always glad to be here.
It's great. 30,000 cattle mutilations in southern Colorado and New Mexico dating back to the 1960s. The eternal question is, Greg, is it UFOs? Is it alien tribes? Is it cults? Or is it the government experiments that they have?
Well, our investigation has shown that it's not from earthly beings. That it's not the government. It's not a cult, because you got to understand that a cult or the government would have to sneak onto Tom Miller's property 16 times and not get caught once, doing untold causing injuries and lacerations and incisions and everything that it takes to take apart a cow, all right, in the darkness. There's no one can do that. And no one has seen anything when these go down. Nothing. All right.
We're going to talk about the Tom Miller Ranch as we get on with this 8th interview. Greg, so many cows have been victimized and mutilated. They're found sometimes with one eye removed, maybe an ear gone, tongue removed. Nearly every case, I think, that we talked about nearly has the reproductive organs that have been precisely dissected and removed. And you know what's amazing, Greg, is a cow has, 5 to 6 gallons of blood, possibly?
I think 10 gallons.
Maybe 10. And there's never a trace that can be found, not even a drop.
Not even one.
No bullet holes, no signs of attack from any predators. And it seems like you stated in our previous interview, that the cattle are hoisted and then dropped.
Yeah, and, these cows, there's been autopsies done on some of these cows where they have skinned the cow just to see if they could find needle punctures, and nothing. And from what Sue got, everything fits from what she got from the very first reading, that the blood is immediately evacuated from the body and it comes out quick. And we believe it's from a hole on the upper left chest of the cow that is always seen in all of the legitimate UBDs that's been had. There was a hole in her left upper chest where Tom Miller believes that they're taking the blood from the cow from that area. But we're just speculating.
So I know some of our friends that have listened to the first 7 interviews, some of our listeners in New Mexico and Colorado. Fitz is Friends in the Sky, and UBD is
Unusual bovine
deaths.
Yeah.
So, Greg, we're listening to Cameron, what's his name? Cameron Prince from the Skinwalker Ranch. And, so he has spent time with an investigation team and has confirmed that the Miller Ranch east of here has an excess amount of energy on his ranch. And at a nearby bridge that we talked about in interview number 1, where there was, 16 fatalities as well as 16 UBDs, they're talking about this investigative team setting up Tesla coils under that bridge because of excess amount of energy. And those coils emit, I believe, 300,000 volts of energy that can radiate electricity up to 25 to 50 feet. And they have recorded 3 times the amount of energy to indicate that there is a magnetic, I guess you can say, anomaly above the bridge.
Now remember, Tom Miller witnessed one of those traffic accidents, and he said that the car levitated. He watched it levitated 2 to 3 feet off the ground, if not more, and then it angled perpendicular to the road, and then whatever had a hold of it dropped it, and when it hit the ground, it rolled, and the female occupant driver was killed. And there was, in that particular accident, there was 2 other females that were in the car that were okay.
On the YouTube channel, when they interviewed he and his wife and the investigative team came in, they have like a plotted map where all of the mutilations, UBDs, have occurred. And coincidentally, a lot of them are near the river and a lot of them are near the bridge.
Yeah.
So
it's confirming everything that we found out.
yes.
That Fitz told us. It's confirmed everything. We know that there's a portal by that bridge, but that portal moves. If we get close to it, it moves, so we can't see it. And we asked Fitz about that, and they were responsible for moving it. And they said that they gave us a "this is not a toy" speech and said that's not for us to mess with, and not for us to tinker with, that they're doing it for our own good.
Well, and this is sophisticated equipment. This isn't just toys that you buy at Walmart.
No.
To be able to detect the amount of energy that's emitted from above the bridge.
Yeah. And like I said, it's just confirming everything that we've gotten.
So that would be indicative of the traffic accidents, the UBD deaths, and so forth.
Yeah, and it, there's an unusual amount of electromagnetic activity, and think about, it would be enough to lift a car, if possible. And there's one other thing that Fitz told us. When we asked them, when they told us what was going to happen in 3 to 4 years from now, and that was in 2020, they said 3 to 4 years from now. We asked them when all this starts, and they said it's already began. They said that okay. So I've said everything that I've gotten from Fitz, and I've just repeated it. And I held off on this one particular piece of information because of how political it got and became.
I think it's safe now, 3 years later, 4 years later, we can disclose this.
Yeah, so in September 2020, they said, we asked when all this begins, and they said it's already began. The advent of COVID-19 was the point of no return. Then they continued to say that COVID-19 was China's failed attempt at launching germ warfare against us, and it failed, and it got out. And they said, they said, do not take the vaccine. The vaccine either doesn't work or it makes it worse, one of the two. But we know it doesn't work, and they said, Greg, you don't need it, so you don't need to worry.
You're protected.
I'm protected. All right, now that being said, fast forward a year or two, and I've been exposed 1 million times to COVID. I don't wear a mask, and I haven't gotten it. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying I'm impervious like Superman. I'm just saying that for whatever reason right now, I'm not getting it. I'm being protected. And I didn't want to give that information only because I don't want to
cause a revolution.
Hate and discontent and anger and everything, how political it got on who takes the vaccine and who doesn't. It just got too, and I decided not to say anything back then. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, if I hold off on things that they're telling me, then it's like lying. It's not telling them the truth. And I'm simply just telling the truth. I'm not making any of this up. I'm not embellishing any of this to make it a better story. Nothing. This is all as is, as it comes, and I've gotten it that way, and I've repeated it that way.
You've talked about cloud formations here and being the same in California. You've talked about portals. You've talked about your documentary and some strange occurrences that have just recently transpired.
Well, when we were filming the documentary, I showed you a clip.
Before the interview, you sure did.
I showed you a clip, and while we were filming, the film crew was at my house, and Mama Sue started picking up on something, and we were wondering what it was, and we're like, well, just sit down and see if we can make contact. And we pulled out all the cameras, I pulled out my equipment, and just see what we would get. So Mama Sue sits down, and we've got cameras rolling, all right, facing from behind her, looking forward, and she sits down, and immediately she gets up and she starts like screaming and like she's afraid, and she gets up and she's running away from something, and I'm looking at like, what is going on? And she runs to one of the cameramen that were filming, because that's like, she wanted to run away from it. And we asked her, what does she see? And she said, I saw this being that was big. It had long arms and it had like red eyes, and it was coming at me with long arms. And Greg, I've been pushed and hit by this thing before, and it scared me. And now here's the funny thing. When that happened, when she got up and ran away, we were filming, looking in her direction. And right in her direction, at the moment that she was running, you see an orb go up to the producer, and it makes a course correction. It goes up and over his head. It doesn't, like, if it was a lens flare, it would have went right through his head.
I can attest to that because I just witnessed that on Greg's phone.
Yeah. And that, I'd never seen Sue that scared. And, you know, it just confirms everything that we have been doing. All these things that are happening is all real.
You also showed me another video of when they were trying to filter, who was trying to filter that, and well, you can tell our listeners what happened.
Well, they were editing that particular video.
The video, yeah. And
for whatever reason, it started blinking. The light started blinking on and off. I don't know if it was the power to the file or what it was, but it just started blinking on and off to making the video, and you know, unwatchable. It just started flashing, and there's no reason behind the flashing, and it ended up going away. They were able to fix it, but there was no actual reason for it. It just was doing it. And I got to say that I'm missing a lot of film. A lot of things that we filmed are missing, you know. And I meticulously logged all this stuff, all my videos. Every video that I had body camera video, I had infrared video, I had a SLS camera, I had multiple cameras going at the same time. And, you know, just because you never know what you're going to get.
Well, the alien tribe tried to prevent you on your, you know, when you hit the horse in the middle of the road.
They continue.
And they kind of ruined your highly sophisticated components as well.
Yeah, they destroyed one of my body cameras, and that's what clued me in, is my body camera stopped working while I went out to this last UBD, which was near mile marker 27 on I-25. And, you know, it just, but that one was different. That particular UBD was different than all the others. But, you know, it's you know, this stuff, it continues to happen.
With thousands of these UBDs, cattle mutilations, why isn't there any confirmation from the government? Are they just oblivious to the fact that, oh, this could be just a cult, or this could be a prank, or this could be satanic worship, or whatever it entails? And, you know, I need to ask you a question. And I may have asked you this in one of our interviews. What is the government hiding in Area 51 that they don't want the general public to know about? Well,
as far as Area 51, you know, I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's much out at Area 51. There is another base that's about 50 miles away where a lot of the experiments took place, and it wasn't at Area 51. It was Area S4 by Groom Lake.
I've heard of that.
And that's where everything was taking place, not Area 51. So and Area 51's got so much publicity that I don't think anything's happening there right now. That's my personal opinion.
So the government may be throwing us off base here a little bit.
Think about it like this. What did Fitch tell us? They said that our air and our water supply were going to be so contaminated that we had to wear masks to breathe, and it's going to, life as we know, it's going to be different. I think the government knows a lot more than what they're saying, and I think they're holding off because they don't want to cause a panic or whatever. And I think they need to, give us a little credit. I think we're a little smarter than that, But they've decided that for whatever reason they're not, they're not going to come forward. I think they have information that, I can only imagine the information they have. I mean, think about what I learned. Just me and Mama Sue with some, paranormal equipment going out there. And that's just me and her. Now think about the government and everything they can do in their investigations, and their budget is unlimited.
That's true. This continues to be a passion for you. You've been doing this for many years now. You've been syndicated with a lot of podcasts, and I know you should be on Coast to Coast with George Norrie. That would be great, because there's a lot of other, not only in Colorado and New Mexico, but there's UBDs and cattle mutilations going on worldwide, not just in the United States.
Oh yeah, it's worldwide. But it only happens in a few places.
In a few isolated places.
A few isolated places.
Who would have thought that a few miles from here, we're kind of like in the Mecca of these unusual bovine deaths.
When I first moved here, I didn't know anything about the area,
Well, you were an investigator for the police department.
Yeah, I was with the Sheriff's Department. I was a sergeant with the Sheriff's Department. And, what I saw out there really intrigued me. What I saw on the first couple UBDs that I witnessed with the Sheriff's Department, it intrigued me. There were so many questions that I had, and I knew, back in the day when I was a sheriff's deputy, I had other concerns of other things I was investigating, not, cattle mutilations and things like that. It was only until I had the time to do it where it's, really started becoming I had to do this. I had to do it. It was something that was forcing me in a way that I can't really even describe, but it was getting me up at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I was waking up at 4, and I started on the project, and I just, every day I worked on it,
So, Greg, radiation is not always found after a UBD death.
No. It just, the ones that I've been on, now the last one that I was on, I don't think there was enough there to have any radiation embedded in it. We didn't pick up on any radiation. It was slightly more than normal, but I'm not an expert in radiation. I can only tell you what I'm getting on my machine and what they're picking up. And it was the last UBD, it was months, all right, before we found that bovine. And all that was left was the hide and the skeleton of the cow. But it was so cut up, you can see all the places that had been removed just on the hide.
It seems like this happens so fast. I know we have technology, highly sophisticated cameras, but it seems like these alien tribes have more sophistication than we have, and they're able to come in the flash of a moment and be able to do this. Why hasn't any of this actually been filmed and recorded and brought to the government?
Because it's happening in a blink of an eye, pretty much. Mama Sue went out and read the last UBD that happened on Tom Miller's property.
Tell our listeners, in case they're not familiar with Mama Sue, who she is.
Mama Sue is a person that has God-given abilities. And she went out and read that bovine. And what she had to say, first of all, she described the mutilation through the eyes of the cow. She said that the cow was grazing out there. They were doing what cows do, and the clouds started rolling in. And when the clouds start rolling in and it starts getting really foggy and hard to see out there, the cows start getting really agitated. They're nervous. They're traumatized. And the one cow, she said, looked up and saw lights coming through the clouds. And when they saw that, all the cows just scattered in every direction. All the cows just took off. And that cow that was running away was thinking in its mind, don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. That's what she was getting. And then she said it, whatever, that the craft got it, took its baby that she was pregnant with, and that bovine, the spirit of that bovine was still at the location mourning the loss of her unborn calf. Wow. Now, I know it sounds crazy, and no, I'm not going to be sitting out there with an EMF meter going, moo, talk to me. That ain't going to happen. But that location, when UFO Witness came out to interview me, I brought him to that cow. And they put an EMF meter on that cow, and they put 4 REM pods, which are like EMF detectors, and put 4 REM pods around that cow. And within a couple minutes, the EMF meter started going off, and the REM pods started going off. And that could have been one of 2 things. It could have been the spirit that we're in contact with out there that manipulates those, or Mama Sue was right, and indeed there was something left from that bovine that was still there.
There's been more accounts. The Taurus Ranch in Model, 15, 20 years ago. The Duran Ranch up the river has had the same kind of incidents.
Yeah, Mike Duran? Yeah.
Yes. So, this is not just an isolated incident with the Miller Ranch, even though there's a lot of activity going on at the Miller Ranch. Excess energy. We talked about the Tesla coils that were placed under the bridge at 300,000 volts. And, electricity numbers don't lie.
Well, we also know, we're also told that there's going to be an increase in UBDs around the area in ranches that have never had the problem. And, I can't tell you if one's legitimate or not until I survey the scene and take a look at everything that's out there. Listen, there are a million ways a cow can die on a ranch. That doesn't involve the graze or anything like that. All right. And you got to be very careful about that when you're investigating. You don't want to be wrong because you can look like a fool,
Greg, we're going to listen for our sponsor right now. We're going to come back with the second part of this interview in about 1 minute.
Okay.
Eli back in the studio here at radio station KCRT on this beautiful afternoon. I am back with Mr. Greg Feynman. He is the founder of UOR Investigations. He's been dealing with this for many a year now, and he has had some great evidence to what he has brought to our listeners in the last 7 interviews. Greg, welcome back again for part 2.
Thank you. Love being here.
Yes,
really enjoy it.
We left off with a little bit about Mama Sue and the God-given abilities that he has bestowed upon her. And I wouldn't call her a psychic.
She doesn't like that term.
Yeah, it's a little abrasive, I think.
Well, there's reasons behind it, and I'm not saying psychics are not of God or anything like that, but she feels that way. But she's been given this ability by God for a reason. And when she tucked this ability away for a long time, until she was about 30, 35 years old. And God had a conversation with her and told her why he gave her these abilities. And and I really believe it all has to do with this investigation. Now, Mama Sue claims to have been taken at the age of 6 by fits. That she was at a campground. Their family was camping, and her mother had watched her go up to the beach area, like right up to along the water. She looked and saw that she was playing there. She looked away for a brief second. When she looked back, her daughter, Sue, was gone. And Mama Sue says that she was found by a tree in the woods behind the area, behind the campground, way in the back and she was just crying uncontrollably, and she didn't know why, but she says that she remembers being above the campground, being lowered back down into the the tree line. She was being lowered as she was looking at the camp. She was able to see the campground from the sky as she was lowered back down to where she was at.
Well, our first interview almost 2 years ago, Greg, this stuff can't be made up. You can't come in for every interview and say exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that's very credible, and you have witnesses that can attest to a lot of your findings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So this is not just a solo operation that you've initiated.
No, and I started questioning if I had been taken in the beginning of this investigation. And one night while we were out communicating with Fitz, I asked Sue to ask them that question.
So we're talking about time loss.
Yeah. Have I ever been taken? And they said, yes, when you were a younger man. Well, that doesn't tell me anything. I was a younger man yesterday, and the day before I was yet younger
That's
again.
true.
So,
That's true.
when was I taken? Well, I was also told that I was going to learn things about myself that I didn't know about myself when I need to know it. So I'm talking to my stepmom about the fact that we asked Fitz about if I was taken, and they said when I was a younger man. And she follows up with, well, your dad was taken. And I was like, what? No, Dad never told me that. She said, yeah. And I said, well, when was he taken? And she said, when he lived on the ranch. Now, I grew up on a ranch, all right? And I had a dream when I was 8 years old that I was standing on the patio, uncovered patio of our front porch, and I was looking up into the sky, and I was looking at this huge craft. It was huge. It was about 200 feet off the ground, but it looked lower because of how big it was. And I could see things moving around on it, like beings walking around or whatever. And to me, it resembled like an aircraft carrier. All right. And I remember looking at it, and the next thing I know, I'm waking up in bed. And I was 8 years old when I had that dream. And it always stayed with me. And it put my dad on the ranch when I had that dream. My dad didn't move off the ranch until my mom and dad got divorced when I was like 11. So, and Fitz told Sue that they took me and my dad, not my other brothers, but just me and my dad, because we were more genetically alike than not. And for whatever reason, back then, I was chosen for doing this very thing now.
And yes, you were chosen. Now, Greg, I need to ask you this. You've been to a lot of ranches. You've been investigating a lot of cattle mutilations, UBDs. Have you ever seen just one drop of blood from any carcass that you've actually witnessed?
One.
One.
And it was done by a different alien tribe. And that was the last one that we did. And because there was blood visible everywhere. And I was like, this is not
normal.
I was telling the owner of the cow, I don't know what to say about this one quite yet. I wasn't picking up on any radiation or anything like that. And but it didn't look like it was done by anything here. All right. It was really gutted. I mean, its contents were spilled out everywhere. The stomach contents, it was a mess. So do
you believe that was from
the reptilian tribe? That they don't have the same technology Fitz does. So they can't do the same thing to the cow that Fitz can do. All right, but
okay.
They can kill it. And Sue picked up about this alien tribe that did this, that they just wanted to hurt that cow. That they just wanted to hurt it. And that's what they did. We believe it was torn apart while it was still alive.
So you don't believe like it was hoisted like some of the other
it could have been lifted now,
because a lot of the bones in the animal has actually been shattered, right?
Yeah.
Corrected?
Now,
so you would have to surmise that if it was hoisted to 20 or 30 feet and dropped, but is it dropped after everything has been dissected? The organs, the eyes, the tongue, everything.
It is.
So when they're finished with their whatever they do with the extractions, they just get rid of it. Yeah. Just dump it.
And people think that that's pretty, violent. And think about it like this. what they're trying to do is save humanity. The only way I can describe it. All right, they're trying to save humanity. And how many cows are killed because you want a chicken fried steak and you want a T-bone steak and you want some hamburger? How many cows are killed because we want to have lunch?
That's true.
Now, Fitz has taken 16 cows. Now,
how many have you actually been involved in? How many cattle are UBDs
with him?
so far?
Well, okay, so I've had at least 3 when I was a sheriff's deputy, and then with the ranch, I've only had 2 on this property. So,
but then you've had with the
but I got
Miller
Mama
Ranch
Sue.
and-
See, I got Mama Sue, man, and that okay. I wasn't so much interested in dissecting the cow. Now that I got the information that I got, yeah, it's time to do an autopsy. But I wanted to do it different, where I just brought someone who has God-given abilities out there to see what she got, or they got.
You were with former Sheriff Lou Girodo.
Yeah.
I'm sure he told you some compelling stories that we probably don't have time for.
Oh, Lou Girodo talks about men in black coming to his office. They came in his office. They were questioning him about the cattle mutilations.
About that.
And then they tricked him into going out of his office to get something. And now, mind you, the only way to leave his office was to go through the area that he was in the first place. And when he came back in that office, those guys were gone, and all of his documentation was gone.
Were they government officials?
Well, they said they were, and it's a true story that these guys in suits showed up at the sheriff's department. It's a story that I've heard, and Lou Girodo was the very first sheriff to come out publicly to say who he thought was doing it, and he said plain and simple, like as simple as you could be. He said UFOs are doing it.
Yeah. Well, there's confirmation, and I'm sure the Millers from just a few miles from here can attest to what you
just like
said.
everyone, all right, when you first get one, you make a little joke or a crack or whatever, and he didn't think much of them at first either until he saw one impaled on a fence post.
Right.
And then that changed his mind. And not only that, there was one where it was below a tree. It was next to a tree, and there was broken branches above the tree all the way down to the bottom, and the cow was laying on a bunch of branches. So it looked like it had fell through the trees and landed, and you say the word hoisted. To me, hoisted sounds like you're putting a strap on
and lifting
it up,
Yeah.
but that's not being done. All right, it's being lifted, but not with no strap. It's there. It's just being picked up, and I'm not the only one that believes this. The Chuck Zukowski's been out at that ranch several times. But I did something different. I spent a lot of time, like where Chuck Zukowski, he has to travel here to investigate the ranch. I'm right here. I can go out anytime I want. And so I've been going out, and I put a lot more time on this property than I think any particular person has.
And you've had some phenomenons going on at your ranch.
Oh.
With the noise. Do you remember the loud noise and the pounding on the house?
Oh, on my house,
and your house. Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff continues to happen. That all these things continue to happen.
They're trying to distract you.
Well, Fitz isn't trying to distract me.
No, not Fitz.
But the the reptilians are. They definitely don't like me. And I asked Sue to ask them one time why they hate me so much. What have I done to them that causes them to hate me? And they said, it's not what you've done, it's what you're going to be doing. So I don't know what that means, but
wow.
It's,
So you said in our last 7 interviews that you're going to continue this until ?
Yeah, until, anything comes to fruition. Everything Fitz has said has been coming true.
And you've been doing this how many years now?
Well, since 2020.
Okay, so we're going on 4 years.
Yeah.
And give us, our listeners in New Mexico and Colorado, a condensed overview about what you've learned in 4 years, just maybe in a nutshell, that you have already not maybe targeted yet or spoke upon.
Well, right now it's about confirming everything that we've got. Fitz told us to stop coming out to the ranch and start studying the Word of God. They were very adamant about the fact that we've already told you what's up out here. You know, you need to study the Word of God because you'll need to know it. And for whatever reason, they've led me to where I'm at right now with God. You know, they led me to the church that I'm going to. And, you know, people think that they're evil, but there's nothing at all that they have done that they have tried to trick me or deceive me or to lie to me or to have me do something that's not in accordance to what God's will is. Mm-hmm. And remember, we're the only world that fell to sin. So we can't be looking at someone else, another being from somewhere else, to say that they're sinful when we're sinful ourselves. Who are we?
That's true.
You know, and their world didn't fall to sin like ours did. All right, so we can't say nothing about them being evil. They have a relationship with God that we can only wish and dream to have.
So if someone calls you and says, Greg, I'd like you to come out and investigate. I've had a UBD death on my ranch. Do you call authorities first, or do you have the right to go to that person's ranch?
I can just go. I can just go. A lot of them have stopped calling the cops because there's not a whole lot that can be done.
Can do. Yeah.
There's really not.
Well, you have all of the equipment as well.
Yeah, I mean, a cop. All a cop can do
is write a report.
Get owner information.
Write a report.
Take pictures of the cow and write a report. No follow-up investigation. Nothing. It's just a report and it's done and that's it.
Is there a UFO investigative team in Colorado? Is there a headquarters in Colorado that you know of? Because I know you network with a lot of other agencies.
I think MUFON might have something, and I was looking at becoming a MUFON investigator, but you know, other things kind of came up first, and you know, but
you still have your film crew?
Oh yeah, we've got. You know,
they were here in the studio about a year ago.
This summer, we're going to be going out and we're going to be taking another poke at trying to find a body out there. And, you know, we can't prove it. There's nothing that that can prove it. But we've done everything on our end that can be done. And, you know, I mean, there could be a body out there. There may not. I don't know until we look. You know, what I really need, what would really be helpful would be a cadaver dog. But, you know, that property's 1,400 acres. You know, how good a shape are these dogs in to be able to do 1,400 acres,
Especially when the weather now is getting warmer.
Yeah. And
so your next conquest, you don't know when it's going to happen. It could be tonight. It could be any time. In 3 months.
It could be any time. You know, and again, when I'm called out to one of these things, I'm not thinking right away cattle mutilation, UBD. When I get called out there, I look at it like there's a million ways a cow can die on a piece of property.
Oh, sure.
You know, and it could have died from an infection. It could have died because it broke its leg. It could have died because
from a lightning strike.
Lightning strike, anything. You know, but you don't want to be fooled. You know, it takes a while, you know, and then not only that, I've got Mama Sue to bring her out there after I've done the preliminary investigation. She comes out and she reads what she reads, and everything that she's gotten, no matter how far out there it may sound, is all, you know, we've had evidence to back up everything she's saying. Even the fact that the bovine spirit was still there, and then REM pods are going off around that cow. So
until our next interview, Greg, we have 2 minutes left. What would you like to tell our listeners that are listening in New Mexico and Colorado?
If you believe anything I have to say, take a good look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, are you ready for Jesus to return? And if you can't say yes boldly, you got to fix it. And I don't know how. That's up to you to fix. But develop a relationship with Christ before it's too late. And that's coming from Fitz.
Greg Feynman, until next time, thank you so much for this informative, candid interview as always. Looking forward to interview number 9.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye-bye.